Hi everybody, as you all are now admitted to the room, what we'll do is, what we should do is the same type of thing as we do in a normal lecture. We should do a roll call, the register. So I'll mention your name and you just reply back to me and you just say, here, Kiva. And you say, here, type in here in chat. Kaylee, Connor, Ina, Owen, Jing, Juma, Leanne, and Tiffany. If each of you says here, I have a record of it here that you were attending my online lecture. So we're going to kick off. We're going to recap and look at the calculations that you sent to me over email. Then we're going to look at e-tenders. We're going to go through a little bit more detail. It was a bit rushed last week, so we're going to go through that. And then we're going to look at BCMS, which we looked at last week in more detail. I need to wrap it up by 4 because there's a staff meeting at 4, so it's only going to, it might not even last that long. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I've pulled out the participants, and I've also pulled out the chat. So if you have a technical issue regarding anything that you can't hear me or I'm not sharing the screen, I would say that in the chat. And if you want to ask a question, there's a thing on your screen, I haven't got it here, where you can raise a hand and you can raise a hand and ask a question. We can answer questions at the end if we've got time. So what I'm going to do is switch now to the PowerPoint slides that I had earlier, which are these ones. And this is where I left you, that you were to do this. And well done to everybody that submitted them. There were a couple of common errors, which I'm going to go through now. That this was the flowchart that I put together that should help you, where step 1, you calculate the general ventilation rate of the dwelling. And you do that by using 4 liters per second for every person, and then 5 liters per second for, let me open it and let Kieran in, he's in. And we have 4 liters per second for every person, and then add on 5 liters per second. Just pulling out the chat again here. Okay, there we go. Right. Now, the common error was that you're assuming that the house is like 5 bedrooms, so there's 5 people in it. Whereas with the example that I worked through, you would have, in a 3-bedroomed house, the first bedroom would have 2 people, the second bedroom would have 2 people, and the third bedroom would have 1 person. So it's not the number of people in your house, because that house might get sold to somebody else, or it might be full up at Christmas and you don't want poor ventilation at Christmas. You need to think of the maximum number of people that would be in that house. So they only went up to 3 bedrooms, but I think the more people you put in the rooms, the better. You're looking for a maximum in order to work something out. So on for example, a 4-bedroomed house, you could have 2 people in one, 2 people in another, 2 people in the third, and 1 person in the last one. 2, 4, 6, 7 people for a 4-bedroom. So you might want to look at your calculations again and look at that in the light of that. So that's step 1, is where we do it with 5 liters per second and 4 liters per person. And the step 2 then is where you multiply the area by 0.3, and the greater of these 2 numbers is then kept to one side. You then, separately to that, you calculate the continuous mechanical extract of all the spaces that generate moisture effectively, like the I said wet rooms before, but that gives the connotation of a wet floor and like a wet room. Whereas it's the places that generate heat and condensation, such as the kitchen, the utility room, the bathroom. And what these are the minimum extract rates. They're minimums. So let me pause that for a second. I'm just going to check one thing. Just going to stop the sharing for a second, stopping for a second, and just want to make sure it's all getting recorded. Good. Just going to go back again now. Here we go. Share. I have a record button on there, so unless I'm recording, it's not recording. Then number 5, we then calculate the general rate, ventilation rate, but add on 25%. That gives us a little bit of extra leeway to work. And what you then have, which is the highest, is it going to be this 4th one, or is it going to be this 5th one? The answer then to that is the total capacity of the ventilation system. Here I have an example of one of your submissions, no names, where it's 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, 1 toilet, 1 kitchen, 1 living room. So what you've got here is assuming that you have 6 people in the house. It's not the actual number of people in the house. In a 5-bedroomed house, you could have, for example, 2 in the first, 2 in the 2nd bedroom, 2 in the 3rd bedroom, 2 in the 4th bedroom, and 1 in the last one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 people. So you can see here that it goes up from 6 up to 9 multiplied by 4 plus 5. So I actually took one down off this calculation. I did it as 8. I can't see any guidance here, but the bigger the number, the more safety that you're going to have involved in it. So that's the recap of that. Any questions on this morning's lecture? Have you got any questions? I'm going to stop that share here. Has anybody got anything they'd like to ask? If you don't want to ask it now, you can email it to me later. No, excellent. Oh, thank you very much, Ina. So what I'm going to do next is to go into eTenders, and then we're going to look at that in more detail. I showed you one last week for a heritage centre. This was the other project that I was thinking of tendering on, and we might use this as an example to show the process and then show the documents, and so you can see the documents of winning this tender. So let me now go. Share the screen, and this is going to be my browser window. So I'm going to switch now over to sharing the screen, and it is Firefox. That looks like it. There we go. We should now be in the eTenders website, the Office of Government Procurement. It's looking for my email. We tried this last week with our fakey Gorilla Mail ones, and I don't think we had much success with it. So I'm going to download the documents. I'm going to show you the process so you can see it, and then I'm going to give you the documents so you can see what they look like. So I'm just going to go into, put my password in, log in, and you should then see login. Login. That's interesting. The website's working. Let me go back to eTenders, see if this works. eTenders. eTenders. Welcome to the eTenders Government website. Login. Put my email in. and my password. And then log in. That's better. We're in. Well, almost in. And last week I showed you public RTFs where you can go into the government website and you'll see all of the current projects that are available to you to enter to win the contract as an architect. Here we are, exhibition fit out in the Cagerfields Ballycastle for the people that are from Mayo. There's loads here, repairs, and some of them are going to be for architects. Here we can see one for accountancy services. There's loads of stuff here. So the one that I was interested in was this. I thought, oh yeah, this is right up our street, in that we've already done one of these already, and I was going to work with the quantity surveyor, had also done a, let me just make sure every participant is in. Yeah. Yeah, the project was for a, what I need to do is to go to the actual, bear with me, public RTS session ongoing, here we go. Just going into the actual one that I accepted, and it's this one here, that's it. And what it was for the procurement of an architect / landscape architect for Sligo County Council, who I know, for detailed design of 14 locations for the proposed Yates Trail. Sort of sounds like a student project as well. So yeah, that's really good. What I need to do is to actually enter that competition. So there's my e-tenders. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to view the RTF, the RFT, request for tender. And this tells you what the project is that the council is looking for an architect or a landscape architect to design 14 spots on the Yates Trail, and these are the things that it needed to be at each location. We need a welcome mat, a lovely seat, a tree, a Yates Trail symbol, a map and information board, and a pedestrian counter. Now this looks like, oh yeah, anybody could do this, but in order for you to win that job, you have to put a team together that is competent and able to be taken on by the council to do this job. So let's go back now. That's the RFT, the request for tender, and we're going to access the documents on that. So these are the documents that you need to be completed in order to send in the price. Oh, Tiffany raised a hand. Hold on 1 second. Tiffany, you have a question. Your hand is raised. Do you want to? You can just see Mark's email. Each screen is separately, each window is separately shared. Thank you for the pause. So what we do is I go back to stop share. Each window is separately shared. So then I go then to this one. I'm going to share this one first. This is where I showed you what the project was. And these are the documents where you're accessing the documents. So when I do view RFT and it opens up a new window, I've got to stop that share, open up a new share, and then share that window. And that is the window that shows the RFT for the project, where we're looking for 14 locations. So welcome mat, seat, a tree, a symbol. It sounds like a real student, like a first year project even. Can everyone see that now? Excellent. So that's the project that we're going to work on. So what I've got to do then is go then to close that, open up Access Documents, stop share, open up Access Documents, which is that one, back to Zoom, share the screen, and it is that one, share. You should now see a list of the documents. What you can do to signify your seeing of that is to do a motion down at the bottom by putting your thumbs up if you like. Do that too, to rule learning. So each of these are the documents that sets out what the project is. We have got here what the design brief is. So I'm going to download these. I'm going to open them and show them so you can just have a quick look first. So what I might do is download them all and then put them on the website separately. And then we might have a chat about them next week. I'm going to tell you what they are more or less. And then next week, we might look at these in more detail once we've all had a good look at them. So there's conditions of you being taken on. There's the form of tender that sets out what the tender is and who the team should be. So it's not just the architect. There's going to be a landscape architect. There'll probably be a quantity surveyor in there. There might be a structural engineer. Then you have a load of stuff about health and safety. You can see here the PSDP declaration. We did a lecture on PSDP and PSCS. You need to have insurance, and here we go. Let me save that. I can open up these in a second if I save the file after I've stopped it. And then it's got whether you're suitable to enter this this competition. Then there's warranties and instructions, what your hourly rates are. So let me stop that again. I've stopped it. Then I'm going back over to the request for tender. You'll see me again now. And what I'm going to do is keep to one side the folder. It should be opening up the folder for, there they are. Bear with me. There. Right, here we go. We're opening up that folder. Here we go. There it is. Right, I have the files here now. If it doesn't work, I'll download them and I'll upload them for you later. Doesn't want to do it. I'm going to have to upload it later for you. Apologies for that. So when we'll have a look at those, I'll download them and I'll upload them to you at a later date so we can discuss those in order to win that job. But that's the process of downloading the documents and being able to enter that competition. I'll get all the documents ready next week and then we'll go ahead and do it. I wanted to try it live, but Zoom makes it difficult to keep opening and shutting windows all the time. So we're going to come back to that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the process of BCMS in more detail, the Building Control Management System. So I'm going now to open up the guide, the National Building Control Guide. This is going to be uploaded to you so you can see this screen. I'm now going to share that screen so you can see it by sharing the screen. and it's this one here, and share. So you should now be able to see the screen of the building control management system. And what you have is a great document that sets out all of the building control steps for the whole process, from logic, what's required in terms of building control, from the design, the building control and building regulations, and then occupying the building. So I'm going to show you all of this. You're free to open it and go through it in more detail. I'm just going to show you the key aspects of it. We have already learned that there are several aspects of the building regulations. This morning we were looking at part F, ventilation. Last week we were looking at part E, sound. We were looking at the very beginning of semester 1, and we've been doing this for weeks and weeks, part L, the conservation of fuel and energy. These are the building regulations. They're really simple, but the way to show that you comply needs to be through the technical guidance documents, or alternative ways if you can show it. So these are the different regulations that affect everything that you do regulatory in Ireland. So if you want to get planning permission, you have your Planning Acts, you have the construction regulations, where we've gone through the PSDP and the PSCS, and then you've got multi-units, you've got flats and apartments, Building Control Acts for all the stuff that I'm going to mention now. The Fire Services Act goes through submitting a fire safety certificate, and there's other ones about arbitration and contracts and sale of goods and services. You know, if you buy something from a shop, that's affected by that. And you have the Health Act as well. So, as I said, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. The rules changed in 2014, where you had the owner. Remember this from last week, where we had the 3 people in the team. We had the owner, the builder, and the assigned designer. Sorry, the design certifier and the assigned certifier. And these are the 3 people that's actually 4, but these 2 could be the same. These are the key parts when you're working in the building regulations, unless you opt out, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So there's a load of stuff here. I'm not going to read that. Then we have what the functions are of the building control. What are the key definitions in the building control legislation? This explains the words of what is a building. It includes parts of a building, any class of or classes of structure which are prescribed by the minister, like your glossary in your thesis that you've done. And then we have the structure of the building control legislation, where we have building control TGDs. They are not the regulations, they are the technical guidance documents. And we've got all the stuff relating to fire safety certificates. And I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so I can see it on the screen. That's better. Certificates of compliance, certificates of completion, which we're going to look at. And that's the general structure of what the building control looks like. These are the TGDs. Those are prima facie evidence that shows that you are in compliance with it, with the building regulations. You can show similar compliances, but you have to prove it. By using the TGDs, they are evidence that if you do it this way, it complies with the regulations. These are the separation things of 7-day notices. I haven't done a 7-day notice since I've been in Ireland. We've got commencement notices, which we're going to look at in a moment. And fire safety certificates. I haven't done one of those in Ireland since I've been here. Those tend to to be done by specialists. I could do one, and DACs tend to be get done by specialists. I could do them, but most of the work I do doesn't involve that anyway. And we have a certificate of compliance on completion, which I'm going to show you, and we have the public register. All of the commencement notices go on a register, and I'm going to show you that register in a moment. And then when that goes on a register, it is validated by the Building Control Authority. Here are all the regulations. So as I said this morning, we did Part L. Part F is the environment. There's the list. There's a whole framework document as well relating to this. This is the code of practice for inspecting and certifying works. If your building is required to have compliance with the statutory instrument, SI number 9, that requires, remember, the owner, builder, design certifier, and a sign certifier, you have to inspect the works in accordance with a new code of practice. And this sets out the table of contents in that what the roles and duties are, lodgement of the drawings, the commencement stage, construction stage inspections, the completion, archiving of records. You then have a framework that the building control works to. Now, this word here, risk assessment, is really important. In the UK, the Building Control Authority go out and inspect the works during construction, but they base how many times they go out on a risk assessment. Is it a building that the builder has never built anything before? Has the builder built loads of work before? Is it something small and fairly straightforward? Is it highly complex? You can see in risk assessment, in problems, well, the disaster that is Grenfell Tower, somebody didn't complete that risk assessment well enough. And that's why there's shit hitting the fan on it. These, again, are a summary of what we discussed earlier. We have the building owner, the design certifier, the assign certifier, and the builder. Each one of these, well, not the building owner, the design certifier, the assign certifier, and the builder needs to be competent to undertake the work that is required of him or her. Who can sign a design certificate or act as an assign certifier? So architects registered with the RIAI are able to be the design certifier or assign certifier. Building surveyors are able to be that. Chartered engineers that are in the Institute of Civil Engineers. These are the 3 bodies that are only able to do this work. So as young architectural assistants, you would not be able to complete large projects on your own until you qualify in any of these aspects. In your group, it's the RIAA. Who can sign a statutory declaration? There's statutory declarations that doesn't affect us. We don't get involved in that. These are the documents that we're going to look at in a moment. Who they're signed by. The commencement notice is signed by the owner. As I said, I don't do 7-day notices. The design certificate shows that the design is compliant with the regulations. That's signed by the designer. Really, it should say design certifier. The notice of assignment, this is where the owner is saying, I want you, Mark Stevens, to be my assigned certifier. And I'm assigning you to be the assigned certifier. So the owner is signing that certificate. I then, if I'm the assigned certifier, sign a document to say, I am a qualified, competent person, and I'm going to inspect the works to ensure that the works match the design. The builder then the owner has to say to the builder, Mr. Smith, I want you to be my builder. So the owner signs a document to assign the builder. The builder signs a document that says he is going to build the works in accordance with the design drawings and in accordance with what the assigned certifier is going to check. And on completion, just going to move that out of the way. On completion, the assigned certifier and builder say, we have designed the building. We have inspected the building during construction. And I, the builder, have built the drawing according to the building regulations. And that's the certificate of completion on compliance. Whole load of stuff about statutory documents. We're going to look at this next. You don't need to read all that now. Then you've got lower risk groups where when you set up a project, you have different risks. So if you have a house that doesn't exceed 4 stories, it's a lower class than buildings that members of the public are admitted to in significant numbers. These are the 4 commencement notice. We have the 2 that we're going to do. Oh, sorry. Commencement notice with additional compliance documentation and the commencement notice with an opt-out are the 2 we're going to look at next. And the commencement notice should be sent in. This is the type of projects that the commencement notice is required for where SI 9 comes into play. I mentioned this before. If you are doing a house or multi-unit developments, flats, an extension of a house more than 40 square meters, and anything that requires a fire safety certificate. That was the rule in 2014. And as I said previously, talk to Joe Duffy, everybody complained that it was going to cost too much money. And was it Alan Kelly or was it the guy after Alan Kelly? Vivian, who was the guy after Alan Kelly? I'll just quickly ask Vivian.
For which one?
For the, don't worry, I'll come back to it. Anyway, it's this the Minister of State for the Environment, I think he was. Anyway, he said, right, it's costing too much money. So what we're going to have is an opt-out mechanism. So this was SI number 9. SI 365, SI stands for statutory instrument, was where they could opt out if they were doing one house or an extension greater than 40 meters square. And we're going to look at the 2 options of those in a moment. These are all the forms that need to be sent in, which we're going to actually look at. We'll look at forms in a minute. These are the drawings that are required for you to send in, and any other documents. These are the form, how you fill out a commencement notice with an opt-out. I'm going to show you that form in a moment. And just flick through some of these, otherwise we're not going to get it all done. 7-day notice, we don't need to know. And there's a load of rules about on completion, we're going to look at that. These are the documents for a certificate of completion. We're going to look at that. What is the role of the Building Control Authority? What considerations? These are the inspections as a minimum that you should do at design stage. Formation is when you've got the foundation, the stonework for the foundation. The foundation itself going in with the steel and the rebar. Up to ground floor to see the damp proof course. Up to wall plate level, up to roof level, up to completion level. For a house, 7 as a minimum is a joke. I would be doing 20, 30 on complex projects, even on a one-off house, we've done 60, 70 inspections to get it right. So your billing and your money that you're making needs to take that into account, because it is a difficult, expensive, liability-prone process of inspecting work. And so that's our completion certificate. We can look at that. Then we have risk-based inspections. This is, as I said, it's risk-based. You're looking at risk. These are faults that would occur in a building. So you've got lots of things here. We did last week sound transmission, the flooring detail. Remember, I've got you to go out and try and measure the floor sound through the floor. We've got any mold growth in the bathroom and any condensation. We did that today, part F. So loads of stuff about what problems there are in a building site. These are the things that the assigned certifier should do, what elements should be inspected. There's a list there. That's a minimum list. Like, that is minimum. Now, this is an interesting one. I might come on to this. We've actually got this problem at this very moment happened this week. A project started in 2000 and it must have been 15. Anyway, it was a good while ago, 5 years ago, 2015 it must have been. And he couldn't opt out. But now he's saying, oh, I want to opt out of it. So I'm going to be looking into the process of what can somebody do if they want to opt out later. And I'll come back to you on that when I've found out what the answer is. Long delays. So that's actually what's happened. And we need to do a long delay on it. Multi-unit developments. Equestrian buildings with horse shows and jumping. Michael, this might be of interest to you when you get to see the video later. Building Control Authority, some of the building questions. It's a good document. So there's loads of stuff there about attics as well. So I'm going to leave you to look at that in more detail. So I'm going to close that window down. And what I'm then going to do is share the next document, which is the opt-in user's guide. So it's this one. I put a document together that, can you see the document that said guide to lodging a commencement notice with opt-out declaration? Give me a thumbs up on here or give me a yup on the chat. Excellent. So this was the guide to lodging the opt-out, and it's a step-by-step process. It's the whole thing here. Remember, we actually had success in setting this up last week. So we're going to look at that in more detail. So step by step, step by step. And I've also put together a document here. Again, let me make sure that you are sharing that. This one. I did my own document to whether you should opt in or opt out. This was done a while ago now. My projects, I don't want any opt-ins. They're too much hassle for whatever money they take to get the certificate for a toilet roll holder for a bathroom. It's the paperwork, the amount of effort that it takes on stupid stuff is a nightmare. So there are the advantages and disadvantages are the same, but the hassle of it is, for me, it's too much. So let me stop the share here. And what we're now going to do is to go through, and I'm going to quit out of this and go into Firefox. Let me get rid of that window, get rid of that window, get rid of that one. And what we're now going to do is to share the BCMS. We did this last week, but this week we're going to do it in more detail. So I'm going to put my email address in and the password and log in. And you saw this last week. So we're going to go through and see some of the projects I've worked on to see what it actually looks like. So these are my notices here. So the first one we're going to look at is a house we're doing for John Clancy. Can somebody say to me, can they see search your notices on the screen? Somebody give me a reply back. Perfect. Search your notices. So these are projects here. I set test up. What's interesting, as I flick through, I'll show you some interesting things. That big sheds greater than 25 meters squared need a separate commencement notice. So even a domestic shed, you'll see a lot of them now. Caroline and Pat's opt out. Paul and Lindsay's opt out. Sharon and Paul opt out. Olivia and Connor's garage is a commencement notice without compliance documentation because the garage doesn't need to have its own compliance certificates for it. But I can't, what did I do with the garage here? Yeah, here we are, it's the same. I can't opt out of it, but I can issue the commencement notice without any compliance documentation. Livia and Connor, seeing them tomorrow, opt out. Alicia and Narian opt out. These are with builders, so we've all decided that we're going to opt out of these things. Martin Healy is a self-builder. He is opting out. Scott and Lorraine opt out. Extensions House and Tourard, can't remember that job, opt out anyway. Amanda Thomas, without compliance documentation. If the extension is less than 40 meters squared, then it doesn't fall into the remit of SI9. So in my eyes, if it's less than 40, I can do it either on an opt-out or I can do it without compliance documentation. Kevin McHale, without compliance, that was, we just put a new roof on that one. Here is John Clancy's, this is the one that I was going to show you, is the first one of that long list with compliance documentation. This is with a builder with all the paperwork involved. So let's have a look at Project John Clancy. Can everybody see the words Project John Clancy? Give me a thumbs up if you can see Project John Clancy. Perfect. Well done. And we did this last week. So remember, we put in all the details here. Your commencement date can only be 2 weeks minimum away from whatever date it is today that you put the notice in. This is the project that we're doing, and this is where it is. The online assessment. You'll notice all of these have now got padlocks on them because I now can't change a lot of the things because I've submitted the notice. So this is John Clancy's project where we've got a house and a garage. I think I got this one wrong in that it should have had a separate notice for the garage. Sometimes I can get away with it, sometimes I can bundle it in the two. The phasing is, it's just one phase, we're doing it all in one go. We then have the roles that were nominated. You did this last week as a group. We have the owner is Mr. Clancy, the builder is Noel, the design certifier is Mark, and the assigned certifier is Mark. We then have the statutory documents. Now, I have downloaded these in advance because as it's a public website, it takes ages to public sector website, it takes ages to download these. I'm going to make these accessible to you. So what I'm going to do next is switch over. I'm going to stop that share and go over to the documents, BCMS, bear with me, and we've got opt-in. Right, we have got form of commencement. Right. And share screen, form of commencement. Share. This is the form of commencement notice for development. Now, this is your project for the rest of the day from 4 o'clock to however long you want to do it until next week. You have a week to submit this. The project is to complete BCMS forms for your current design project. That is what your project is going to be. So I'm going to give you, at the end of this lecture, I'm going to give you all the samples that I've got. You can either try and work in the groups that we set up last week, or the blank forms that we had last week, or you can white out using traditional print and Tipex, or use PDF Escape to white it out and put all the things of your project in these forms. So this is that's the first form that we're filling in, is the commencement notice. This involves 3 sheets. You can put this in, your name, and then the end results are end results emailed to me. That is the form of commencement. Remember, what we're looking at now is the full SI9 not opting out process. Now I'm going to share the next document, which is, let me go back to here and share document. Oops, sorry, it's Teams. Share screen, and that one, share. This is the notice of assignment of the assigned certifier. This is signed by the owner of the building. If you remember the people that were the owner in your group last week, you could even go through the process that I have to go through, which is a complete pain of getting the owner's name in, sending them the PDF, getting them to sign their name, and then emailing it to me, effectively uploading it to BCMS. So if you remember the person that was the owner in your group, that's the person that's signing that document. Then we have the notice of assignment of the builder. I'm going to have to stop the share again, share the screen, and notice of assignment of builder. This is again a document that is signed by the building owner, to say that he has assigned the builder to be the builder for this job. That's the second document that you need to fill in. I'm not going to go through all of them. We need a schedule of documents. You can make one up for yourself. There's the undertaking by the assigned certifier and the undertaking by the builder. Those documents I'm going to make sure that you have access to. Can I have a reply to this question in chat? Have you ever used Moodle? Ever? Can you reply to me in chat, please? First year, yes, 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 yes. What I'm trying to do is to move away from my own website, because this has actually been an opportunity to learn online teaching and to really use Teams and Moodle and Zoom so I'm going to move everything across at some stage to Moodle. So these are the documents I'd like you to fill in. The design certificate down to the undertaking by the builder. That is a full SI9 process. Let me now show you the opt-out mechanism. Let me open up the BCMS again, which is here. You can get rid of this for the time being, quit out of that, and go back to Firefox. And let me get it ready first. My notices. And then share the screen. In here, share screen. My notices. Share. You should see search your notices again. And if I scroll down, Paul and Lindsay McCormack's was an opt-out declaration. So if we have a look at that one, we should be able to see the same process: project, online assessment, phasing, nominate roles. Here are the statutory documents for an opt-out. So this is project 2. Fill in forms for an opt-out. And I'm going to give you these forms. They're really similar to the other ones, but there's only 3 of them. And the if I open up the ones I've had pre-prepared for you, 2020 lectures, online, bear with me while I get the folder ready. BCMS, opt-in, right, okay. So this is I'm going to stop that share screen, and it's just opening. Apologies, share screen and form of commencement. This is the form of commencement as an example to give you. If you can't download blank ones, or if we haven't got the ones from last week, you can white out all the bits in this and use this. But this is to say that the form of commencement, that this is the building control authority. This is what the project is. This is the development that we're going to do. And these are the building designer details. And it's by the building owner. This is signed by the building owner as a commencement notice. And the key bits in it, is there a key bit in this? Not in that document. Let me open up the next one, which is the opt-out declaration. I'll share that one next. Share. This is the key. I declare that, having regard to the provisions of the building control, I've decided to opt out of the regulations. The whole responsibility for compliance with the regulations effectively rests with the owner. So you can see why it's attractive to us as architects and as engineers, or whatever profession you're in, that we give the responsibility to somebody else. That is a declaration to opt out. We then have the notice of assignment of the builder, and let me share that screen. It's this one, and that the builder's name is the same name as the owner. And remember what I showed you last week, it's actually on my website. That actually flags with the Building Control Authority that they need to ask for more information. So if that is the situation, there could be as much paperwork or as much effort and money to get compliance, which should happen anyway. We should be building and designing compliant buildings. So those are the documents I require you to fill in: the form of commencement notice, the notice of assignment, and the opt-out, I'm going to either try and get you blank versions, or I'm going to upload the ones for you to white out. I might even white them out myself for you. Now, on John Clancy's, where we have this process where we've gone through the entire process, at the end of the project, if I now go to, just going to switch out, get it ready for you, and share that screen. Share. There's a section here, My Certificates. These are completion certificates. So, for example, this one is, let me go down to one that we completed that went quite well. Where's a good one? John Clancy says it's not complete yet. Some of these aren't complete. Incomplete. Oh, Keith and Ramina's was good. So I have to fill in a completion form to say that it's complete. So let me open that up and show that to you. And you don't have to fill this one in. This isn't a project. So if I now open up the completion certificate, which is this one, and share it. This is a certificate that is certificate signed by the builder, part A. He's built it in accordance with the drawings that he's been supplied. Signature. We go down, and it's also signed by me, the assigned certifier. I have inspected it. I confirm that I have an inspection plan. I've gone out and inspected it. And that is signed by me and the builder. When that is signed and then submitted, it's then uploaded to BCMS in that screen that I just showed you, and it goes on a statutory register of projects. And the register of projects looks like this, if I share it. Share screen. This is the register of projects. I did a quick search of all the projects that required, these are actually, I didn't think they had the opt-out ones here as well, but they have got every commencement notice. These are the ones in January of this year. So I don't think I did one in January of this year. But these are every single project where commencement notices have been sent in. And you can see every single job that's happening across the whole of the country as I flick past it. We've got Meath, we've got Laois, we've got Offaly, Donegal, Monaghan, across the whole of the country. This is just to show you don't have to do anything with that. It's just to explain to you that that is the end result. You do your commencement, you do your completion when it's finished, and it goes on a register. And that is the completion of this lecture on BCMS. I would like you to keep an eye on your emails. I'm going to make sure all the documents that have come up with full instructions of what is required from now until next week. I'd like to thank you for your attendance. And again, I'm going to upload this movie. I'm going to start to get them on Moodle. I'm waiting to get the modules set up. So I'm going to bid farewell, and I'll see you again at 10 o'clock next Thursday, unless we hear differently. So goodbye.